Welcome, everyone, to our brand new podcast called Getting Deep with a PhD and a JD.
Hey, Nikki.
Hey, Kimmie. I have a question for you.
Okay.
All right. So, what do the following people have in common? These are famous country music stars, okay?
Okay.
The Carter family, Maybelle Carter, Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, and Bill Mooney.
So, they're all characterized as fathers of modern country music, but they were also all nurtured, taught, trained by African Americans, where the genre really started.
Absolutely, yes. So, what we're going to talk about today, we are going to talk about country music, and we are going to talk about Blacks/African Americans in country music.
And the influence.
Absolutely, because a lot of times people associate country music with white Southern culture. And the truth is that Blacks or African Americans were really instrumental in the genre, and
Absolutely.
and really don't get enough credit.
Right. So
And
if we want to be very direct, African American people started what is modern country music. And you can ask anyone who is well versed in musical history, in particular country music, that what we deem as current and modern country music started with the introduction of the banjo,
right, yeah,
which finds its history in West Africa. It was brought over here by enslaved people from West Africa, and they brought their instruments or their knowledge of those instruments. I can't remember in the research if they brought them with them or they made them when they were here.
I think
because
they made
used them.
because the instrument that the banjo comes from was made of gourds, made out of a gourd, and so they were able to, like, they understood what the instrument was and they were able to replicate it here.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that so then that was in in the 1800s. The banjo was seen as a exclusively as a Black instrument,
Right.
and it was introduced to the masses through minstrel shows.
Yes. And if folks don't know what minstrel shows are, think about the shows that they had, kind of like, I think it was almost people will say that it's kind of a precursor to vaudeville kinds of things but they had blackface. So
Yeah.
these things, a lot of times they made fun of African Americans. They made fun of enslaved folks, and you would see people with blackface and with different the different features really exaggerated. Yeah, and doing kind of really ridiculous things, and it was seen as dancing, shucking and jiving, and that was seen as entertainment. And so that was the way that the banjo was actually introduced to white audiences, because up until that point, as you said, Kimmie, it was really seen as a Black instrument, and because it was on slave plantations and in the fields, when people had time, during a lot of times it was on Sundays, where they could go and they could play instruments. That's where people would see the instruments being played.
And those minstrel shows, then they introduced the instrument to white audiences, and then it was appropriated by white people, and it sort of provided the groundwork for what we've probably heard of as hillbilly music.
Hillbilly music, yeah, yeah.
And hillbilly music, for a small period of time, was created and performed by diverse musical collaborations. Like you'd have black and white people
Right.
singing and performing and producing and creating hillbilly music together.
Yeah.
And that was probably, and this is the other thing. So, all this history, like I said, it starts in the 1800s, but when it actually was introduced to white people, we're talking late 1800s, early 1900s. And I didn't realize how young modern country music is. Obviously the hillbilly music is a little bit older. It was the precursor.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't realize how young it is. When you think about it. So,
I didn't realize either. I didn't realize
mhm.
either.
And I've always had this, whenever I would listen to or hear a country song, I would always say to myself, that sounds like what I would say to myself is that sounds like black music, right? It's very soulful, and I
It's
mean
very
it.
soulful, and a lot of the themes, like
Mhm.
a lot of the heartache, the struggle,
Mhm.
and I think that really ties into with hillbilly music, they had blacks and whites performing together, and a lot of times there were poor blacks and whites or enslaved blacks and whites and
Mhm.
poor whites who were playing together, and so a lot of the themes were very similar.
Because a lot of the early songs were copied, patterned after hymns,
Hymns and spirituals,
spirituals
yeah, yeah,
sung by enslaved people.
right. In
So,
fact, one the Carter family really they were some of the first. That was the family that really brought out country music or hillbilly, like the connection between hillbilly and country music.
mhm.
And one of their really popular songs was actually a song that was a black spiritual that was arranged by a black uh, preacher. And then that song eventually morphed and it became This Land Is Your Land.
Mhm. Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so
Land is my land. Which one is it? This land is my land or land is your land?
both of those are lines, I think, in the
Yeah.
song,
But I
but
wonder
I don't
what
know
the
what the official
official
title is.
title is. That's what I was thinking.
It's probably "This Land Is Our Land," probably.
Yes, it probably
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, hillbilly music, we've got to be very specific because hillbilly music was actually renamed country music,
Country music. Yes.
very intentionally.
Right.
It became what they call the music of the South, and this
Yes.
was in the early 1920s.
And
Um, mhm.
also, Kimmy, I think it's important to mention that when the or the producers, music producers, and people who became part of the music industry, they intentionally segregated music. And
Mhm.
so country music became white music and black music became this thing called race music. And which is really an odd, I kept
Mhm.
reading that and I kept thinking, are they
What does that even
saying,
mean?
what does it mean?
Right.
But they felt that blacks and whites, because remember, back then, people only thought there was this dichotomy: you're either black or you're either white. And
Mhm.
they thought that people could not listen to the same music when in reality, people had been listening to and performing together with the same type of music.
Yeah, for a while. Mhm.
Right.
And so we started the episode with the fathers or grandfathers of country music and how they were actually um, taught by um, African Americans who had been doing the music since, like I said, the late 1800s. So, like for example, um, Jimmy Rogers, who is credited with penning and performing, the first major commercial country music song, Blue Yodel Number 9. He was, he did that song with Louis Armstrong,
But Louis
and
Armstrong was uncredited.
he was uncredited.
Yeah.
And Rogers, let's see, He learned how to play the banjo and the guitar as a teenage high school dropout from Black people who worked on the railroad alongside him. And his trademark yodel blended blues, European yodeling, and a falsetto popularized by African American singers. So he was taught and educated by, Black people in and around him, to do the music that he did.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Hank Williams also. We talked about Hank Williams was
Rufus T-Top Payne.
T-Tot.
T-Tot, yes. T-Tot Payne, yes.
And then let's talk about DeFord Bailey.
DeFord Bailey, he was one of the first performers, Black performers in the what was it, the Grand Ole Opry? Yes, and he
was he okay? Was he? When I read the research, I thought he was the first. Like,
oh, I think I did see that. I did see
not
that.
the first Black person, but the first.
Okay, I did. Yeah, I did see that, and because he and interestingly, he was the grandson of a slave, and he performed. He played the harmonica, and he was just beloved. I mean, they said that he was just an amazing player, and then the radio was up and coming, and so that was the new invention, the radio. And so the interesting thing is that with a radio, race could be hidden. But then it said that DeFord Bailey, when he started to go out on tour, and then people realized, oh, this is a Black man, and he actually wasn't able to stay in certain places because of rules of as long as people didn't realize a person's race, then like on the radio or something, then people could really still be still play together, like
and
different
enjoy
races,
it,
and
music.
enjoy it. But then when people started to go out and they saw race, and then people really, really, became, okay, we got to keep people segregated.
Yeah. And when that happened, when the decision was made to sort of segregate and commercialize country music, that's when all of the Black people that were already associated with the genre were pretty much erased,
yeah,
from history. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you remember that movie Cadillac Records? And actually Beyonce was in that one, I think.
I remember it, but I can't recall exactly what happened in it, but I do remember.
So Beyonce was in it. Columbus Short was in it. It really was about, most of it music was blues and blues, and I guess the beginnings of R&B or whatever. Because Beyonce played, what's her name? I can't remember.
And this was back in the 90s, right? Was it? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was in the may have been early 2000s.
It feels, well, time right now feels very weird to me anyway.
But I think,
okay.
Definitely. Because so it was about that Chess Records, I think was the actual name of the record label. So anyway, part of the movie included Chuck Berry. Now did Chuck Berry do country music? Or was it rock and roll?
It was rock and roll.
More rock and roll.
It was more rock and roll. But but the genres seem to really blend. And so but he was more of the rock, definitely more of the rock and roll. Yeah.
But I guess it's like a similar story in that it's, this idea that you have a lot of, black people started rock and roll, and you've got Black people in country music, and it's the same old thing where you have Black people doing this music first in the Chitlin circuit or whatever, and then you've got the white counterpart doing the same, sometimes even the same exact songs, and it's marketed to white audience, and it just is sort of appropriated, and rock and roll was then turned into a mainly white audience,
right?
Like country music was, and so country isn't any different from the other genres of music that you can trace back to a majority African American influence and then African influence.
Exactly. And one of the things that I've noticed about, if you listen to music on the radio right now, we have a lot of music that is like the crossover hits.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of country music that's now, it's called country pop, or as I like to call it, co-pop.
Co-pop, yeah.
Or popco. I think popco sounds kind of popco, co-pop. Popco sounds a little better.
Popcorn sounds like popcorn.
Yeah, it sounds like popcorn. Where it's people who are traditionally country stars that are partnering with pop stars, rap stars. Yeah, there's a lot of crossover, and I think it's wonderful. I mean, I think fusion and people borrowing, as long as people are aware that they are borrowing things and they're not trying to claim it as their own. They're not trying to culturally appropriate, yeah. And so I find it just, if you listen to popular music on the radio right now, I mean, it's just amazing how many traditional country music stars are now on stations, and they're doing different fusion type music. Yeah.
Exactly. And Leslie Riddle was a Black guitarist that sort of created the current guitar finger picking style that's used in country music today.
That's the other thing that country music, we were talking about the grandfathers of country music. Well, a lot of women as well as Blacks were left out.
So, what are your thoughts on a call to action associated
Call
with
to
this
action
topic?
is to really support Black country music artists. I mean, it really, because there are lots of people who really want to do the music, and they're out and they're trying to get their feet in the door. And it's hard for anyone, in terms of the music industry, to break into the music industry, but it is especially challenging. Yes, it's especially challenging for Black folks doing country music to get into their foot in the door. And so really to support Black country music artists. I mean, I think that it's a genre that's hard for a specific type of folk to break into, and we really need to support artists.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that, it's okay. Because, I remember, when being a child and you have the different genres of music, it was almost like, okay, as a Black person, you can only like R&B, you can only like rap, you can only like soul music. And it was almost like you weren't allowed to enjoy other genres of music. And so I think because the history was erased.
Yeah.
And the call to action for our podcast is always education. It's always doing your research and not just accepting what has been spoon fed to us as a fact or as a thing. Because we're now learning. Like I said, I learned a lot of new things researching this topic.
I did too, and I also learned that there are different country music, like historical places and different things and associations that people can really take, that they can get involved in. And I think that if you are a person and your heart, country music speaks to your heart, and you happen to be Black, then there are opportunities for you to learn about the music, to really be involved. And I think the call to action is to take that step. So it's about supporting the artist, and it's also about the artist stepping up and saying, this is who I am. Because some artists will have gone to other genres first, and then try to, I know, I remember Darius Rucker.
Yep.
Hootie
and the
aka
Blowfish.
Hootie and the Blowfish. And I remember hearing that he was doing country music, and I was like, what? And I realized, that was where his heart was. He really wanted to be in country music.
And I read a statistic about Darius that I was not aware of, so far as how successful his his country music was. Yeah, here it is. Let's see. So for 2 decades, so he earned when he switched to country music, he earned 25 charting singles and 2 platinum selling albums.
Wow.
Like I didn't know that it was that he was that successful in country music.
Yeah,
And
I didn't
he
realize it
co-hosted the
either.
CMA Awards in 2020.
Yeah. I didn't realize he was as popular and as successful in country music, because I knew that he had gone to country music, but I still always remembered him as Hootie.
So I think this is a good segue into our final segment, our Tell Me Something Good segment, which is our favorite.
Our favorite.
And I think the Tell Me Something Good is, and you know, the elephant in the room is, you know, the catalyst for us even discussing this topic is Beyonce, right? She's the queen of everything, right?
Beyonce of the United States. You know what? I put that in my tagline, and I'm still waiting for people to see it. I put that in my tagline at work for my signature. I have a bunch of really inspirational quotes, and then I have it, and it says BOTUS, breaking the internet one song at a time.
Really?
So I'm still waiting for people to see it. And I'm
wait. Let me go to, because I know you just sent me. Did you send me an email from?
I did.
Okay. Let me see. But yeah, so it, you know, this whole conversation started because, you know, Beyonce, you know, is doing a country album. You know, like Renaissance One was her house
yes.
album, and now this, she's calling it Renaissance 2, right?
I think she is calling it Renaissance 2. Yeah.
And so it's country. I'm trying to see. Oh, I see it.
I'm still waiting for people to see it. I'm like,
So the B is just Beyonce.
Yeah. Okay. Beyonce, instead of POTUS, like President of the United States, it's Beyonce of the United States.
That's good.
So I love that. That's a take on the commercial, the Super Bowl commercial they had. And it's like Beyonce of the United States. I thought, I love it. I
missed that. I saw the commercial, but I missed that saying.
The BOTUS, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, and this is her first full country album, but she had a country song on Lemonade.
Yes, everybody she had Daddy knows. Lessons.
That was a really good song.
Yeah, it was a really good song.
There are a lot more. So the Tell Me Something Good is just that there are a lot more African American artists, you know, creating country music.
Absolutely. So I made a list of some folks, and let me see if I can find it. Of course, we know originally, did you know Ray Charles did some country music? Charlie Pride.
And Charlie Pride. Yeah.
You know, my mother loves Charlie Pride. So when Charlie Pride was live, we actually went to a Charlie Pride concert. So.
And she's got a signed.
We have a picture.
Autographed
signed picture. Yes. And we got to take a picture with him too. So that was fun. Let's see. Mickey Geithner?
Guyton? Is it Geithner or Guyton?
You know what? I think I know who she is because
it's Mickey Guyton.
Mickey Guyton. And then let's see.
You got K. Michelle.
Yes, and there's some other folks who are.
Yeah, so just some names that I'm not familiar with, like Kane Brown, Jimmy Allen, Blanco Brown, and someone named Breland.
Yeah,
so there are a lot of, you know, Black artists doing country music.
And so, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great for people to live into their authentic selves. And if people want to do country music, they should feel free to do country music.
Exactly.
And I also, and we were talking before about the John Schneider quote, how he was talking about how lefties, I'm paraphrasing, he's like, lefties want to get into everything and it's like peeing on a tree or something. So he was speaking specifically about Beyonce and her country song. And I love it because think about how ridiculous it sounds to be upset because people are going into spaces and being successful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's wonderful.
That just goes to show that, oh yeah, you're just tired of Beyonce excelling at everything. That's
Exactly.
what she had to say.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's like,
she's too fabulous for you.
and it's just, and so it made me chuckle and made me giggle a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
really just saying that someone is so fabulous and that they shouldn't go into every place because they're just too fabulous. I'm like, oh, that's just a wonderful compliment.
Because her single is definitely charting very well.
It is charting. And also the fact that some stations wouldn't play it, but
Mm-hmm.
because of fans uprising,
Mm-hmm.
now the stations are playing it and it's
Yeah.
actually charting.
And it's doing well.
And it's doing well, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing well. And
Yeah.
I Googled because I was just curious because I did for my Zumba class, I did a line dance to it. And there are so many line dances out there for Texas Hold'em.
Oh, already. Yeah, of course.
Yes. And so many diverse people doing it. So many diverse people and groups, diversity in ethnicity and race and age and, just all kind in ability status and just all kinds of people enjoying Beyonce.
And the song is good. I like the
song.
song.
Is good. The song is good. And her other 16 Carriages, I like that one too.
I do too. I heard both of them.
Quiet song. But yeah, Texas Hold'em is a good song. And I have to shout out to my dad. Daddy Donald.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're right at 30 minutes. Nicki.
Oh my goodness, how did we get to 30 minutes?
It happens every time. So I hope you all are, all of you out there are getting used to our new schedule. Just to remind you, we're posting every other week now, so a bi-weekly schedule. Because life just started lifing for us.
Life happens. Life's gonna life.
Yeah. So we had to spread it out a little bit, but we're still dedicated to giving you content, topics that, or some perspective of a topic that may not be in your timeline right away. And, just hoping that we can continue to educate you to take action where necessary and learn something new. So with that, I guess we'll say goodbye for today. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Definitely like and subscribe. And comment. Like and subscribe. And also comment. We want to hear from you. Definitely.
And we do reply. We reply to your comments. Yeah.
We love it. We love it.
Okay. So until next time.
Bye.
Bye.